This section discusses where parking is located and how it's used. A complete understanding of parking supply and regulations is a basic component to understanding parking patterns. The study documented public and private parking facilities, both on-street and off-street, in the Downtown Lynn study area. To gather the most accurate understanding of Downtown Lynn's existing parking, we recorded regulations as they would be viewed by a first-time visitor to downtown, representing the current signage and usage of parking areas rather than the ownership status. Most on-street parking in downtown is subject to price or time regulations, denoted in green or blue on the map to the right. Time-restricted spaces are mostly located near commercial destinations. Loading and short-term spaces are very limited. Finally, most on-street parking in outlying residential areas is unregulated. The city manages nearly all on-street spaces in 6 off-street lots. For paid parking, this represents over 1,000 parking spaces operated under a variety of different styles. Different off-street lots allow for different types of parking permits, while the City Hall and Spring Street lots are more restrictive in terms of their usage. All on-street paid parking is subject to a 2-hour limit during the payment period. The parking department, as of early 2024, deploys a combination of kiosks and meters for parking payments. Mobile app payment is also allowed. There are 119 parking meters and 15 kiosks in downtown Lynn as of early 2024. About 2/3 of downtown Lynn's overall inventory is off-street, with the majority of this off-street supply restricted to the public. In essence, restricted spaces can be considered as unavailable for general use. Communities across New England and the nation have identified opportunities for opening up this supply to other users, as a way of reducing the unnecessary expansion of supply for public use. Downtown Lynn has few on-street loading zones, particularly in the areas dense with commercial uses requiring regular deliveries of goods. This can lead to double parking on city streets, contributing to traffic congestion. Parklets use on-street parking to expand pedestrian amenities or provide outdoor eating space. Parklets attract passing pedestrian traffic and encourage visitors to visit nearby businesses and spend more time there. Lynn currently has no formal programs, policies, or zoning ordinances outlining procedures related to parklet installation. Currently, there are no defined requirements for the provision of handicapped parking spaces in off-street parking facilities in the Lynn zoning ordinance. To request a handicapped parking space or sign, a request must be emailed to the parking department, which is then approved through Traffic Commission review. Statewide, electric vehicle sales continue to trend upward, with 2023 sales increasing 46% from the prior year. EV charging stations in downtown Lynn will be important for attracting visitors or accommodating residents who own electric vehicles. For many navigating downtown Lynn's parking system, a lack of clear parking signage can lead to off-street facilities being underutilized because they are not readily navigable upon approaching downtown. Confusion about where and how to park can lead to motorists occupying the closest available space to their destination, regardless of regulation or signage. Now let's talk about parking utilization. We conducted utilization counts on Thursday, November 16, 2023, and Saturday, November 18, 2023. An additional late-night count was conducted on Monday, December 4, 2023. The weekday counts were conducted at 12 p.m. and 6 p.m., while the weekend counts were conducted at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. Utilization data is presented in charts on the following slides. Generally, parking lots and on-street parking segments, shown in green on the right, signify 80 to 89% occupied. This is ideal for a downtown. It means that there's considerable activity in the downtown, but there's at least one available parking space on each block. Below 80%, too much parking may be available, indicating a price or regulation is not matching user needs. Above 90%, motorists are not able to find parking where they desire it. This map shows parking utilization on a Thursday midday. The system as a whole is 58% utilized. Areas of higher utilization exist along Pleasant Street, Central Avenue, Silsby Street, and Mount Vernon Street. The weekday midday time period typically reflects the highest utilization for parking in a downtown setting. In downtown Lynn, many blocks of on-street parking are at or approaching capacity. City-owned lots are about 70% utilized, and some private lots in the vicinity of Market Street, Tremont Street, and State Street are well utilized. The Thursday evening count showed 42% occupancy across the study area. Higher utilization was present in the areas of Oxford Street and Monroe Street, Mount Vernon Street, Spring Street, and Exchange Street, and Union Street. During the early evening on weekdays, utilization levels have typically dropped from midday levels as downtown employees have returned home. Residential utilization has begun to rise as commuters return home, although it's typically not until later in the evening that utilization for residential buildings peaks. On a Saturday midday, utilization across the study area is at 40%. Some areas show higher utilization than others, notably along Monroe Street. Outside of the shaded areas on the map, parking is often readily available. Special events, weather, and time of the year can affect parking activity in downtown Lynn on a typical weekend day. In the November period in which data was collected, off-street public parking facilities were generally found to have excess capacity, and even on streets with high utilization, parking is often available within a block or two. The Saturday evening period has similar utilization as the midday period. There are concentrated areas in downtown, such as around Oxford Street and Monroe Street and along Central Avenue, with high observations of on-street parking occupancy. Several off-street lots are nearly or completely empty during the weekend evening period, including many public lots. Outlying residential neighborhoods have pockets of high on-street parking utilization. Our final data collection period was overnight Monday into Tuesday, where utilization across the study area was only 32%. Utilization is highest along residential streets and outlying areas. At 60%, the MBTA garage is also at its highest occupancy level across all collected time periods. A unique factor in downtown Lynn is the presence of street sweeping between Monday and Friday mornings between 4 and 8 a.m. Street sweeping generally alternates between odd and even addresses on streets, leading to imbalances where one side of the street may be close to full utilization, while the opposite side features little to no vehicles. Some observations we noted during the data collection exercise were that downtown Lynn's diverse land use mix mean that there are several locations where utilization is high during all time periods. Drivers will often create their own spaces to park where they'd like to park. However, convenient and walkable off-street facilities often have availability during both the daytime and evening periods, while nearby on-street spaces can be full. Communities are generally well served to use pricing as a mechanism to manage parking utilization where demand is high. Some areas like the Monroe Street and Oxford Street corridors are currently subject to no pricing. City-owned and operated lots featured stark differences in utilization over the 5 data collection periods. During the weekday midday, these lots are 72% utilized. In all other time periods, they are only between 21 and 35% utilized. This speaks to a system which primarily accommodates commuters. Peak utilization for off-street private lots is at 53% for the weekday midday period, compared to 65% for public facilities during this period, and is as low as 23% during the weekday late night period. Private parking is typically reserved for the tenants of the properties they are located on. Outside of time periods where tenants would use these spaces, they often sit empty. The MBTA garage features a unique utilization pattern. Of its 338 accessible spaces in November and December 2023, peak utilization of just above 60% occurred during the weekday late night hour. The garage hovered between 40 and 60% utilization throughout the data collection period. Given the closure of the Lynn commuter rail station during this period, usage patterns for the garage are bound to be disrupted over what would constitute normal operations. As remarked by many during our February 2024 public meeting, the physical state of the garage is one of disrepair. Not included in the aforementioned maps was Common Street. About 60% of Common Street spaces are occupied during the Thursday and Saturday midday and evening periods, with lesser utilization during overnight hours. Utilization trends higher near Market Square, with lower occupancy totals along some segments of South Common Street. We'll pause on this slide for a moment as a summary of the parking inventory and utilization exercise. The recommendations of the study will focus on how a utilization target of 85 or 90%, as discussed earlier, can be achieved in more locations. Shared parking strategies can be advanced to ensure more of the underutilized private parking supply is made available for broader use.